Hey, I want to show you this hitmaker Ableton template that I've designed with the last 14 years of my producing. I put my heart and soul into this template and I want to show you everything. It's a free template. You can download it below. It works for Ableton 11 and 12. It's low on CPU and it has everything from audio effect racks. It has serum samples, drum racks, drum samples, like custom, just the way I organized it based on other producers, just all the things I've found over the years. It is just packed full with all of that and it's free. So I want to show you what it can do. I want to go through the organization of it and just jump right in and kind of show you why it's so amazing for producing really any genre you want to. All right, let's jump in. So the first thing you're going to see, the first track is a reference. I always like to put my reference tracks in whatever project I'm producing. It's good to have a reference of what you want it to sound like. Or this is a just popular pop song with a good structure. So like intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and outro. So it's a good way, easy kind of way you can see visually a structure of a song. You can put whatever reference you want here, but this is just already loaded in here for you. Then you're gonna see these 6 groups. So there's chords, vocals, bass, drums, FX, and effects and chains. I'll explain chains later. They're a little bit more unique. It's where everything's routed to. The beautiful thing is everything's already set up routing wise to route into chains. And this is just gonna help you in the mixing and mastering stage and just kind of take some work off your plate. Let's jump into chords. So this is where basically anything with like notes that's not bass or vocals is going to go into. So common chords would be keys, strings, brass, organs, pads, samplers, leads, plucks. Let's just go over each one of these really quickly because each of these tracks is meticulously crafted with audio effect racks, and you're going to see a lot of the same audio effect racks across all these tracks. So once I teach you how one of these basically tracks works, you'll understand how all of them use, but I'll jump into that in a second. First of all, for keys, you're going to have a piano. Now, again, all of these packs and stuff are actually located in the download in the description. You can get everything from samples to the packs all there for you, even the audio effect racks. So you're going to have a piano, you're going to have a strings ensemble. These are just common instruments. You'll be able to add or remove anything you want from this template, but these are just ones I like. You'll have some brass, some horns, some organ, a pad. This is just you can put any sort of pad in here if you use Splice. This one's more, I just set up a sampler for you to mess around with all the macro knobs right here, so you don't have to mess with stuff here. Then here's just another sampler. A pad is more just a sustain sound. Sampler is just, you might want to be sampling stuff. Then you got lead sounds. I didn't actually mention this in the beginning, but you only really need 3 plugins to make this whole thing work, and you could do it without any of them. One of those is Serum, and I'll go over the other 2 later. But with Serum, I'm actually giving you a ton of presets, and those are all going to be these different types of sounds. So you can basically set up Serum on any of these channels. You could set up one for, let's say, keys or instruments, and you're going to have all these presets. These are ones I like in all of these, not Bell, but all the rest. And just different sounds I like. These are different lead sounds. And just go through those and find what you like really fast. I find Serum just great for finding really good sounds. You can obviously fine tune them to your liking, add effects, remove effects, all that stuff. And then we have plucks here. So this is just kind of to get you started with, it already has a lot of sounds loaded in. And then with Serum, again, you could load instances of Serum with all those other sounds I have. So that is chords. Then for vocals, basically you're just going to put all your vocals here. I have a stock Ableton vocal chain set up here. And I also have the audio effect racks that I'll go over in just a bit on top of a side chain on here. Then we have bass. All your bass is going to go in here. Have a bunch of different, the main bass sounds you're going to be needing. So 808s. This is a sample selector 808, so it has tons of different sounds. So you can hear, but you could just click random and you get a whole different set of 808s. And there's even something more special. We can add basically distortion to just the highs. So you keep the lows as is. And then let's say we want to clip this sound. So you can really start to shape your sound on just the highs because of this 2-band splitter. This was made by someone else, not me, but this is included in the project. So that's super cool, in my opinion, for anything 808 related. This is just a good a sub you can hear. This is actually from Seed to Stage. So there's just a great low subs. You're gonna use those in most genres. You can use those type of subs. There's a finger bass, it's a pack. And then here is a respace. This is by Dank Sauce. If I used other people's instruments and stuff, I'm just putting them here. So you could look them up and check out their channels and all that cool stuff. All right, so you got bass, and then we're gonna go on to the drums. Drums, I'm really proud of. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. I'm just kind of showing the organization, and then I'm going to dive into some of this. But the drums include side chains for inputs for both the snare and the kick. And then there's a hip hop drum kit that's really versatile and a pop drum kit. And they sound great. Both of them sound really good. And then there's also percussion set up, an infinite percussion rack. I want to go over all of this. I'm going to go through from the top again, but I just want to show you first everything you're getting at a zoomed out level. Then here's the FX. This is also built by Seed to Stage, but these are up risers and down risers that you can add a sample into, which are also really cool. So you can create custom up and down, basically tension risers. And then you got your chains. This is where all your different sounds are going to go into different parts of the chain. And you could add certain stuff here, but there's a lot already added, like limiters and stuff you can turn on and off. I'll go over some of this at the end. In general, you don't have to touch this too much, but it's going to basically allow you to have a lot more flexibility in your sound. And I use this on every project from mixing or producing to mixing and mastering, basically, that I do. So let's jump in to the top. Now you kind of understand how this whole thing works. I think it's really beautiful. Let's jump in and understand how these audio effect racks work. And that's the main stuff. And then I'll go over chains, and then, I'll show you the main channel real quick on the main channel. So this is where everything's routed into. All the chains go into main. You're going to need to download Span. It's a free, you don't need to, but it's a free plugin, really good for monitoring. Basically, it's just better at monitoring than using Ableton's default plugin called Spectrum. You should also download Ulean Loudness Meter if you're trying to create any sort of competitive sound. We measure them in the LUFS, and in general, you want to see where you're at on your mix and your master to kind of get a feel for how loud your mix or master is. On here, you also have a limiter you can turn on or off. This is just to protect your ears in case you do something too loud. When I'm mixing or mastering, I'm going to turn that off. Glue compressor, this is set up for actually mastering. You can mess around with the threshold a little, but you want around 3 to 5 decibels of reduction. They're showing how much reduction there is. I keep this on every track. I learned that from someone, and I've just been doing that. You can play with it, see if you like it or not. This will put everything in mono. It's a good mono check to see how it sounds in mono instead of stereo. And then, so that's all right. Now that we've looked at kind of the overview, the high level of how this template's set up, let's look at the audio effect racks, because that's another way this template really shines. Let's jump into here, and I'll show you this digital preamp. Now, this has been the idea, and a lot of it was developed by Seed to Stage, Anthony from Seed to Stage. Check out his YouTube channel, amazing channel. I did make some adjustments to the width and the OT. I used some different OTT settings and did a few changes to some of the stuff. So let's check this out. What is this for? It is for sculpting your sound. It's just like a Swiss Army knife for being able to do all sorts of things. Like, I'll give you some examples. Let's say we have this sample and we want to just cut the lows, basically. You can cut out as many lows as you want, just like that. At the flick of a knob, you don't have to load an EQ8 or any of that, auto filter, anything like that. We can also cut out the highs. Just there, I use those so much. Usually cut out the bass. In general, we want to be cutting out, 100 to 120 hertz of most of your tracks that aren't bass or kick. To clean up the sound, you can just do that right here. Also, the chains I didn't show you, but the basic limiter is going to do that for you, that all the chords are running into. So that's really cool. But yeah, let's say you wanted to do that, or cut out more. You can really start to sculpt the sound just with those two knobs. This is all for saturation. It's more in depth. Honestly, you should check out Anthony's video on his Seed to Stage, basically this plugin, because these are his saturation effects, and this is more for being able to save some headroom. A little bit more complicated. I'm not going to fully go into it, but I kept these in here because they can be really useful. Then there's this expander. This is going to help with the transients. Basically, if you have a really transient heavy song, you can cut off some of that, but you're not going to hear that much in the sample. Can be very useful. I don't use it that much OTT, I use a ton. OTT is an over-the-top compressor. It's very widely used. You have OTT built into Ableton. Actually, I can't. No, this is a free OTT, but sorry, it's called Multiband Dynamics. I believe that's what this one's using. Let's see. Also uses, yeah, it uses one thing from Slink, and then this is Ahi. I included one of his thingies up in here for OTT, but yeah, this one uses the old Multiband Dynamics. Cool. Yeah, you can see just by clicking this, everything that's in here. So yeah, if you want to squash the sound, there's a lot of different ways you can use OTT. In general, it's going to save you headroom. It's going to also change the sound. You can change how much glue is there, how much punch. To the right's more punch, here's more squish. So just right there, you have a ton of change in the sound. Do you like it more? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Sometimes you can definitely get I would say better sound, but it just depends on your vibe, your genre, what you're trying to create. But for like something powerful, I like this. I mean, it's louder, obviously, but yeah, so you can play with that. Double click these to get them back to the default settings. Now you have an output, how loud, you can basically just add some decibels. That's great. So you don't have to add a utility. You can put your bass into mono. So everything under, let's say 100 Hertz is now going to be in mono. Really useful for certain times. You don't need this a lot, but sometimes you need it. I love this width clip. This width part of it, because you can basically make the sound wider with just a knob. If you have headphones on, you'll definitely hear this. Right now it's like out here in the ears, and then you pull this back, to 1%, and it's just gonna be more in the middle. And I actually change this. If you put it to 0%, it's actually gonna be in mono. So it's in mono, and then I just double click to put it back to 1%. You'll hear some width there, and then this is gonna make it even wider. And then lastly, you have a clipper, super good for saving headroom. I'm not gonna do a full tutorial on this. Maybe I'll show you in the drums, but basically you can save headroom or just start to heavily distort a sound. It's not going to sound good on instruments. Mainly use the clipper on drums. Cool. So that's one of the main audio effect racks on every single track. Really useful to know all that. That's why I wanted to go over that. And now I'm going to show you this duck and delay reverb that I'm so proud I made. It took me a while, but basically you can add really expensive sounding delay and reverb with stock Ableton plugins. Basically, when a sound is happening, the reverb is going to be ducked from the sound, or the delay is going to be ducked, and that allows you to create a really cool, powerful sound that nobody that I had seen has a rack on this. So this alone is, it's all free, but pretty crazy, in my opinion. And I'm going to show you an example of like how this kind of works. So it works really well with like vocals, and is anything where you want reverb to happen in the between the spaces, but not happen while the sound's happening, because that kind of cheapens the sound and makes it just muddy and takes up too much space. So I'm going to show you examples with basically the ducking on and off. Let's turn off the reverb. So this, you have reverb, you have some settings here. You can go into here and it's a hybrid reverb. If you don't know how to use this, you can look it up, but basically you can change the sound up. This is just a default setting. And then here's the delay and the compressor. Let's close this again. And let's just hear the reverb. Let's really turn it up, just accentuate it. So you hear that long tail here, that wouldn't be here without it, okay? But while the sound's happening, what's happening is the reverb is being pushed away. You can see right here, there's 11 decibels of gain reduction on that reverb. If I didn't have this compressor on, this will turn it off. It's a different sound. Now, it's not always bad, and you might be struggling to even hear it. I'm gonna try to stop talking and let you hear it, but on a certain sounds, you'll notice it a lot, and it can be really cool to just keep that compressor on and basically have the reverb or delay duck out while the sound's happening and come back in when it's not. Let's turn it off. And this sound is not my best for showing it, but I think you get understand it somewhat. Let's add some delay in. We can change the timing of the delay. Now this with the compressor off, let's turn it on. See, it's not happening here, and then it comes in. So you get to hear the sound without the reverb and delay, and then it comes in. It's a beautiful thing. That duck and delay is on everything. And the one thing you need to know, if you add this to other tracks, you do need to open it, and you need to sidechain it from the track it's on. So actually right now it's wrong. It should be sidechained. I'll show you from width, clip, OTT, whatever the track name is. I have it set up on all these tracks correctly, or at least I should. So this one is like set up. So it's basically sidechaining from itself. If that doesn't make sense, well, just set audio from that sound. I don't know how advanced or beginner you guys are. So the easy one is, just when you add it to a new track, make sure if it's on keys, you audio from keys and it'll be working. And if you want the compressor on, just make sure it's past like 64 or whatever. It just needs to be over here to be on. And you can change the threshold amount here. That'll change like how much compression there is on that signal. Cool. Okay, now I want to show you how the sidechain ghost inputs work, but first I need to kind of show you the drums for you to even understand that. So you have 2 drum racks, and they're infinite drum racks, which is so cool. I meticulously crafted these. They took me hours and hours and hours. So let's listen to this hip hop one. I like to draw in my drum beats. You could obviously play them, whatever you need to do to create a cool pattern. So let's say you got this pattern, it's pretty cool. I'd say it's for like a hip hop beat. I'm liking it. Click random, you got a whole new beat or a whole new set of sounds. They're all controlled here by the spinny knobs, the macro knobs. And there's also one fancy knob here that you can add reverb to the snare. And what is it doing? If you click on snare, what are we doing? Yeah, we're cutting out the sound as the snare hits and that comes back in. We're using basically a duck reverb. That's just not labeled here, but that's basically what's happening. So pretty cool. And you could obviously change up these sounds in terms of what the actual hybrid reverb sound is. A little bit more complicated, but yeah, you can basically take off reverb and you can add it. You can also just change any of, let's say you want to change the hat individually. You can also right click and exclude from randomization. Once you find a good sound you like, you can also save. The beauty of it, I'm showing you the beauty of these racks, or like how Ableton made things. You can just save, let's say you like this set of sounds. You can just be like new, save it, whatever the name is. And now you can just play around and try to find some sounds you like and then come back to this one. Or you can just Control Z to get back to it. So that's super powerful, really cool. Those are the main things on here. Obviously you can control all the levels of each. Everything's labeled correctly, colored correctly, which I am a fan of. So you can basically change the volume and also change the panning of each of these sounds. They're set up somewhat pretty mixed decently well, but you're gonna have to play with them for each different song you make. And then each sound, let's say the kick has a transpose right here. So you can make, basically transpose the kick up, and then they should all have reverses. I don't use reverses much, but you could basically make each sound reverse just with a macro. So it's kind of easy to do there. I think that's pretty much it that we have on here. There's some processing already set up basically on the drums that makes them sound better and louder and fuller, but you don't need to mess with that. So that's really sweet. So then you have the pop drums. These are more, the hip hop ones are for hip hop kind of EDM-y stuff, trap, beats, just beats in general. Pop is more for your singer-songwriter stuff, your pop stuff, your indie stuff. And, you can just try, samples are samples. They're not necessarily defined to a genre, but this is going to be more for pop stuff. So here's a set of just a different drum pattern, and you can just click random again. It's the same thing over here with a slight variation where you have fills. Let's listen to adding a fill. So if I'd want to do that just by drawing it in, I'd come up here and basically draw in this fill section. Let's cut out this sound and start the sound here. So you have a fill right there already built in, but what does that fill have? It has a knob. Let's hear that new fill. All right, let's change it to a new one. Whoa. Pretty sweet, if you ask me. Yeah, that's really cool. So you can play with your fills there. Again, all this stuff works the same. It has the same processing. And the beautiful thing is, you can just move around. Once you have MIDI, you can just move it between your different types of drums, hear different ones. You can save them, randomize them. It's a beautiful thing. Now for sidechaining, the beautiful thing about having a ghost input, because this wasn't explained too well to me. I thought ghost inputs were super hard, all this complicated stuff. All you need is MIDI drums. If you don't have MIDI drums, it's a little more complicated. I'm not going to go into that, but I like to just draw all my drums into MIDI at first. I'm a big fan of that. And for this template, I just recommend you do it for sake of ease. Let's say you want your kick to be sidechained. If you don't know what sidechaining is, I'll explain it kind of at the same time. But First thing you need to do is you just drag, and I'm using I'm using a Windows keyboard on a Mac, so it's confusing, but basically I'm duplicating the clip, look up the hotkey for that, and I'm deleting every note that I don't want to sidechain. So I'm just keeping the kick here. And then if I want the snare also sidechain, I'm deleting everything except for the snare. So now we have a kick input and a snare input. Now, in general, we're gonna mostly be sidechaining on our chords, on our chord section. So let's set up this same sample we had from before, and let's turn on sidechain. Now, right now, it's just getting input from sidechain's kick. That's like our little kick thingy down here. Let's real quick duplicate this and do audio from sidechain snare. So now we're gonna be sidechaining basically from the kick and the snare. Let's listen to this. So now when the kick's happening, it's cutting out that audio, and when the snare's happening, it's cutting out that audio. Let's hear it without it. And let's hear just the kick. Sorry, just the kick now. And let's hear it with the drum beat, so it's a little more. And you could obviously play with the sidechaining. This is pretty pronounced right now. You can play with the ratio and see basically how much sidechaining you want. You know, you can just bring up this threshold and have a lot less of the audio ducking when that kick happens. Sidechaining just gives you a much more professional sound in general. Most songs, high-up productions have some level of sidechain. And yeah, generally I'm utilizing just the kick on sidechain. I don't do snare that much, but you could do just a lot less on snare. This just gives you a lot of flexibility. And in general, it's really fun to play with sidechaining. It can give you a really professional sound really fast, and you can dial it in from there. You could obviously add the sidechaining just to certain audio tracks if you want. It doesn't have to be on the entire chords. I just have it on here, and you're gonna play around with it. If you want to sidechain your vocals or your bass, you can do that too. Specific note for sidechaining on your bass, I have it here, but a lot of times you're gonna hear some clipping with the Ableton default sidechain. The plugin, sorry, there's a sidechain compressor. I just called it sidechain. You're gonna have issues with the bass. You're probably gonna need to buy something. I like Shaperbox for my sidechain, or of choice. You can just get a different one. It's hard for me to do bass with the Ableton stock compressor, so just know that it's gonna be hard to do. If you don't buy something for sidechaining bass, it's gonna be a lot less easy. Let's move on to this Percussion Infinite real quick in the drum rack. This is a cool little infinite percussion rack. Basically, it has percussion samples, and let's say we just draw on something funky here. We'll just do everything on a offbeat or something like that. And let's just add there's 8 different percussion tracks that all have duplicate percussion. All right, let's just loop this and hear it. Now I hear that I have some like reverb already turned on here. Let's turn that off real quick. I have my duck and delay, famous duck and delay. All right, so this is what it sounds like right now. It's not that cool, but it's not bad. We can randomize this, get some different samples, you know. You can just drag it yourself if you want, but I like to just click random until I get some stuff I like. And then, yeah, I do like to turn on this duck and delay and start playing with this to kind of get some different feels. And then you can hear it with the drums, you know, included. You can change the level to kind of get a different feel here. Play at the low and high cut, add some OTT, see what happens. Start to get some weird stuff, you know, add some other notes. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can play with that for a while, you know, just again, depends on the song. It doesn't actually necessarily sound that good right now, but you can see the power. All right, let's go over the FX. Anything for effects that you're gonna add, risers, downers, impacts, stuff like that, add it to this section just for organization purpose and also for routing purposes. But also in here, you're gonna have an upriser that you could just draw in. It already has a sample attached, but I'll show you how to use it even more efficiently. Let's solo that. So that's gonna create a rise up from a sample. And the cool thing about this is from seed to stage, but you can take any sample you have. Let's just throw this in here and see here it sounds. And then you click the random button here, very loud, but you can start to get some really interesting, different just risers just by throwing in samples here. And then obviously you can play with effects and turn off the compressor here. So these don't always sound good but sometimes they're interesting, and you can definitely start to get pretty interesting, and you can play with these. So like this one's kind of interesting to me. And you can just go with a good old easiest way to create a riser. If you don't want to do any of this crazy newfangled nonsense, just throw it in here. Throw any symbol in here. And some symbols are better than other ones, but generally just reverse it before the impact, you're trying to create. Let's say it's like right here. And that's going to sound pretty cool. Sorry, my Ableton's going really slow. I use symbol transitions all the time. You could also make this longer or find a longer sample. But yeah, cool. Hear that in context. Too many things going on here. Cool. So you get the idea. All of this just requires a little playing, but you can start to get some really cool and unique sounds. The downer is the same thing, but it's going to have down kind of sounds. You can hear that. If we just draw something in here, play it, it's pretty cool. And just by pressing random on the same sample, you can get a lot of different stuff, and then just throw something in here and get even more sounds. Now you have to make sure if this like playhead is in the wrong place, you're gonna have to probably move it around to get some good sounds. All right, so we pretty much went over all the coolest parts of this template. I'm really excited for you to get your hands on it. If you want it, just go to the description below and download it. It's free. It works for Ableton 11 or 12. If you have any issues, because this is my first time kind of unveiling this to the public, like downloading stuff or getting the right stuff that not everything's uploaded, just let me know in the comments and I will go ahead and fix that for you. I'm really excited for you guys and girls to get your hands on this and use it and show me some of the stuff you make with it. And I'm excited to just hear if it's helpful for you. I think it's really powerful and just really good. Like this is literally what I use to produce with. I do have a template that's a little different because I use some paid plugins, but I just wanted to make a free version for anyone who doesn't have all the plugins I have and just use Splice. Even if you don't want to, if you don't want to use Serum, you don't have to. That's the one paid plugin that's, in the chord section here, because I have all those Serum presets. The one thing I didn't go over that I could go over in another video is how these chains work. These are based off of Ahi's Skrillex video on chains and also Will Hatton, and I changed them up a little bit. In general, they're just ways I use. There's a few settings on them, like cutting out the low end, that just route into the master easier so I don't have to remember what to do. And then as you get more complex with certain projects, you can throw them into certain parts of the chain. Like you might want just like a something for your sub right here, your bass, versus throwing it on the bass channel, stuff like that. But in general, just leave them unshown and you'll be good. I hope you really enjoyed this video and you can give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. I'd really appreciate that if you're downloading the template or you got some value from this.